What is going on, everybody? Welcome. We've got the power rankings. They're back. This is one of my favorite things that I do on a yearly basis, is my weekly power rankings. So we've got the week 1 power rankings here. Do make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you like these videos as we go as well, and turn on notifications so that you can follow these power rankings throughout the year. So as we do with these, we show the weekly plus minus, the weekly movement, and this is going to be reacting to my off-season deep dive power rankings. And there's actually a decent amount of movement in here, just a lot of injury news, obviously like retirements, like Andrew Luck, that kind of thing. A lot has kind of changed because those deep dive power rankings are about 3 months old in terms of when I first listed them. So a lot of movement here. Let's get into it here with the Miami Dolphins at 32. Obviously, they're the worst team in the NFL. They just got even worse for this season with the Laremy Tunsil trade. Now, anytime you can hold a desperate organization for ransom and get more for a player that's a really good player, but definitely not worth, to me, 1 first-round pick, let alone 2 first-round picks and a second-rounder, like, they just had to make that trade. They got way too much, but they are going to suck this year. Number 31, the Oakland Raiders. Again, just too much hype on this team. It's by far, for me, the worst defense in the NFL. I don't think there's anyone that's close to how bad this defense is going to be. Offense should be pretty fun to watch, and I do think Carr is a long shot for leading the NFL in passing yards, but yeah, this team's not going to be any good. Number 30, the Cincinnati Bengals. Just too many injuries. Their left guard retired. Like, this is a team that you go back to my deep dive on them, I actually was creating a lot of hype on this team, and I thought they were a sleeper team in the AFC. Now, a lot of that was centered around their first-round pick, Jonah Williams. He's out for the year. A.J. Green's going to miss the first half of the season. It's just not going to be the Bengals' year. Number 29, the New York Giants. Now, they are going to move up a couple spots just because I'm lowering on the Raiders and the Bengals. But, I mean, the defense, to me, is going to be bottom 10. Like, they got some nice pieces. It's probably not going to be getting lit up every week, but just pretty far away from being any kind of elite defense. It's a team that wants to run the ball. They're not going to have any kind of impressive passing game. Hopefully we get to see what Daniel Jones offers at some point, but yeah, I don't think the Giants are going to be any good. And I just learned yesterday with my prediction show that Giants fans actually have a lot of hope for this season. I genuinely feel bad for you because it's not going to be a fun year for Giants fans. And you can only hope that Dave Gettleman is on his way out after this year, who just butchered the 2019 NFL draft, in my opinion. Number 28, the Arizona Cardinals. You know, I think maybe I just had them a little high considering how much I love Kyler Murray, and if this was a how fun are these teams going to be to watch type of power rankings, they'd be in the top 5. But this is a rare team where I am concerned about their run defense and their front 7. The secondary, you got Patrick Peterson suspended. Like, the defense has some nice pieces, but they're kind of just soft on that side of the ball, to be completely honest. And then offensively, they have a lot of learning and growing and figuring themselves out to do. So it's going to be a really fun team to watch, but they're probably a year or 2 away from being any sort of contender. Number 27, we got a tier jump here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, it's going to be an explosive offense, a borderline top 10 unit on that side of the ball. Quite possibly the best group of playmakers in terms of receivers, but the defense is going to be a hot mess. Number 26, the Washington Redskins. Not a whole lot of movement here. They're going to remain as a scrappy team that's going to be in almost every game. I'm really excited to see Dwayne Haskins. I think it's week 4. I'm really hoping for this. Giants start 0-3, Redskins start 0-3, and we get the debuts of Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins, those 2 teams against each other. Now remember, Dwayne Haskins, really bitter against the Giants for passing on him, and he's also, I believe, from the DC area. So that I think is a narrative I really want to see. Number 25, the Baltimore Ravens. Gonna be a good defense. I like this team, I always have, but they have, to me, the worst quarterback in the NFL, at least starting, and certainly the worst quarterback in terms of passing offense. So it's just really hard for me to be high on a team that I don't think is going to be able to throw the ball with any consistency. Now, hopefully Lamar Jackson proves me wrong and this team can compete, but until he shows me that he can consistently throw a ball on 3rd and 12, I'm not going to be picking this team to do much. Number 24, the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I'm not worried about the future of this organization. I think inside this division, you've got 2 teams that are a train wreck in terms of Jacksonville's inability to evaluate the quarterback position. Houston's just doesn't even have a general manager, and they just gave up their future for a left tackle. So I do think you have reasons to be optimistic for the Colts after the Andrew Luck retirement. Obviously, they have an offensive line. They have probably the best coach in the division and certainly the best front office in the division. So I do think that, there's a chance Jacoby Brissett is actually better than we all think and has sort of a Dak Prescott-esque season. I don't want to say Patrick Mahomes, who really surprised last year, but something along those lines where it's kind of the weekly narrative of like, oh, hey, this Jacoby Brissett guy is actually pretty good. But even if he isn't, I do think the future of this team is going to be okay. But they did, they were set back multiple seasons with that Andrew Luck retirement. Number 23, the Tennessee Titans. And they're going to come down just a couple spots here. I've been just souring on this team. I'm out on Marcus Mariota. He has no... he's soft. He doesn't have any balls. He doesn't know, when to run. His deep ball is wildly inconsistent. It's just so in Tennessee. They're probably going to win 8 games again, but it's going nowhere here. Number 22, the New York Jets, +2 here. They're just kind of hovering around here. I still think they're a couple pieces away. They're really going to need Sam Darnold to become a top 10 quarterback, I think, if they want to be a playoff team this year. Excited to watch this team, but I just don't really know what to expect here. Number 21, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll be completely honest, that's probably just a little too low on this team early in the spring. Just reacting to how bad I think Nick Foles is going to be here, and that hasn't really changed, but he is very much an upgrade to what they had in Blake Bortles. Telvin Smith had just announced that he wasn't going to play this year. This is still going to be a top 5 defense. They got a great pass rush. They got one of the best secondaries in the league. Offensively, they will be a little better than they were last year. I don't think they can be much worse. So, they'll hover around here. I think win some games that you might not expect. Number 20, the Buffalo Bills. They're staying here at number 20. One of the most intriguing young teams in terms of what's this team's upside going to be. Now, this season, if they're going to make the playoffs, and I do think they are in a tier where these teams can make the playoffs, it's going to be with that defense becoming a top 5 unit, and I do think that is in the realm of possibilities. You're going to need Ed Oliver to be the kind of player that I think he is. You're going to need that secondary to really round out with your corners outside of Tre'Davious White, and probably need a step up from Tremaine Edmonds. But on the offensive side of the ball, they're just going to have a lot of inconsistencies, and I like Josh Allen a lot, but he is inaccurate. I do think his inaccuracies are overstated, but you'd be dumb to say that he's an accurate thrower of the football, and just his processor is the biggest concern. So you're going to have weekly inconsistencies on offense, but if they can be that elite top 5 defense, there's no reason this team can't win 9 or 10 games and get into the playoffs. And then 19, the Houston Texans, they've given up their future, and I think this team is going to continue to drop down and down and down as they have to pay Deshaun Watson and don't have the first-round picks to fill out the margins of this roster that they've already done a terrible job of doing so. They need to get a general manager, someone that understands value, because that trade for Laramie Tunsil was, to me, the worst trade right behind the Khalil Mack trade last year when the Raiders gave Khalil Mack for essentially a first-round pick. So I do think they're going to be competitive this year. I actually have them as the best team in this division. I think they'll win the South, but it's a top-heavy team that has a really hard time filling out the margins, and they just made it even worse on themselves. So I think they're in a bit of a train wreck situation right now. Then we got the Detroit Lions. They're the opposite of a train wreck. They're staying steady. I think this is the team on this list that I have the most confidence in what they're going to be. They're going to be, in every single game, they're going to try to keep the score down. I think they're a good, not great defense, probably closer to the great margin on that spectrum. And then offensively, they do have some upside with a quarterback that can really sling it, but they are asking him to be more and more of a game manager with the style of game they want to play. Now, in a loaded division, I don't think that is something you can get away with. If they were in the AFC South, they'd maybe be the favorite to win it with that style, but when you got to go the Bears, Packers, and Vikings, I just don't think they're going to be good enough to win the division or even win 9-10 games to get into the playoffs. Number 17, the Denver Broncos. I think I liked this team, and I was even accused of being high on this team at times when I had them at 23. But I think I was actually kind of sleeping on how good this defense could be with Vic Fangio coming over from Chicago. Quite possibly the best defensive mind in the NFL of anyone not named Bill Belichick, who has completely generated dominant pass rushes with teams like San Francisco and what we saw with the Bears last year. Now he's got maybe the best combo he's ever had with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. So this defense also adds some new secondary players in there, could be really dominant. And offensively, I don't think it's going to be a great offense, but it is going to be a step up from what they had last year with Case Keenum and a replacement level tackle now in Ja'Wuan James. Now we have a tier jump up to 16, the Carolina Panthers. Now I caught a lot of flack from Panthers fans, and I get it. I had them at 6 and 10 and last in the division. Now I do think they're a much better team than I indicated with that standings prediction. They're going to compete for the playoffs. I just have some weird vibes about Cam Newton. It was already kind of weird with his shoulder the last couple years. He's had 2 offseason shoulder surgeries now. We saw a significant drop-off in his ability to throw the ball, and I just don't know what we can expect there. Even if he is fully healthy, to me, I've always been a little lower on Cam Newton as a top 14 quarterback, but not an elite guy. The defense will be good. I have questions about their secondary and their edge rush, and I like their playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, but I don't know if it's going to be quite enough in a loaded NFC. Number 15, the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this team's been kind of my darling over the summer, but they just have so many injuries going on here, and I still believe in Jimmy and Kyle Shanahan and this offense surprising a lot of people. I think Jimmy, to me, is a very good candidate for a comeback player of the year. But the defense, I still got major worries. A lot of my optimism was surrounded on Nick Bosa and Dee Ford being in there getting after the quarterback, and it could still happen, but there's just a lot of injury concerns with both of those guys. So I'm lowering on them a little bit, but I still think they're better than people think. Number 14, the Seattle Seahawks. Like I said in my predictions video, the Clowney trade didn't really move a whole lot. He's worth, to me, about a half win, a full win. He's not even, to me, a better pass rusher than Frank Clark. It's probably a push. So while this team is always going to be a playoff contender, and just like I said last year, when you have Russell Wilson and that culture and that defense and that home field advantage, you're always going to be in the mix for the playoffs. Now I'm all of a sudden being accused of hating this Seahawks team. Someone actually said that I'm a Russell Wilson hater yesterday. Like, come on. I stuck my neck out for this team last year, so I don't want to hear any of that. It's just I think that they were the best version of themselves last year. They're going to be in the mix for the playoffs yet again, but a lot of teams made better improvements than the Seahawks did over the offseason. I don't think Jadeveon Clowney is all of a sudden going to change all that. Number 13 here, the Cleveland Browns. They're going to move up a couple spots here. Now, I still got major questions about the tackle situation here, but the roster is loaded. They just have to overcome the adversity of being the Cleveland Browns, and they should be in the playoffs. Number 12, the Atlanta Falcons. +4 here. The offense is going to be explosive. It's probably going to be a top 5 offense. Matt Ryan has looked very sharp in the preseason. I would even go as far as saying on film he looks like a new man. So the offense will be great. The defense will be better than it was last year just because they're getting guys back healthy. It's not going to be a great defense, but I do expect this team to compete. Number 11, the Minnesota Vikings. Just like we said about the Panthers, I did have this team actually finishing last in the NFC North. It's a tough schedule. Their offensive line still sucks, and it's going to be really hard to take that offensive line on the road when you got to go to a silent count and give opposing pass rushers the advantage in terms of timing up the snap. Other than that, this roster is loaded, and there's no reason they shouldn't compete. And I think even though I had them as last in the NFC North, I do think they have a better chance of winning the North than the Detroit Lions. Number 10, the Dallas Cowboys. Coming in here inside the top 10, they're creeping up here. I think that defense is going to be really good. Whether or not Zeke is on the field does not change a whole lot for me. I think that offensively, they kind of know what they want to do. They've got a new play caller in there as well, but it's going to be a lot of Amari Cooper. I think we see a lot more screens, even more play action, short hitting passes, kind of have a more conservative approach on offense to really complement what is probably a top 5 defense or so this year. Number 9, the LA Chargers. The Derwin James injury just sucks. It really does. Now, he should be back by the playoffs. If this team can make the playoffs, they can be the best version of themselves. Also keep in mind that Joey Bosa really wasn't Joey Bosa last year, so at least you get him back. You also had Hunter Henry, so it's going to be a slightly different version of this Chargers team. But to me, the biggest concerns are offensive line and lack of home field advantage. I've always liked this Chargers team, but for the first time, it feels like I'm actually a little lower on this team than most people. Number 8, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The opposite. This is a team that I've been selling as a sleeper team that people wanted to write off going back to like March. Like, they're still the Pittsburgh Steelers just because Antonio Brown is gone. And people say, oh, they lost Le'Veon Bell. He didn't play a snap last year for this team. They have the best offensive line in that division, the best quarterback in that division, and that's not even close. They have a competitive defense. It's not a great defense. and probably the best culture in that division. So I think the Steelers are going to be back as a borderline powerhouse team this year. Number 7, the LA Rams. You know, just the Jared Goff factor. He is a system quarterback to me, a very good one. His arm really impressed me last year. He can make every throw on the field, but when he has to read and react, that's really not great. And everything kind of went right for this team last year outside of the Cooper Kupp injury. I think you see a little more adversity this year with 2 new starters on that offensive line. Some changes on the defensive side of the ball as well. I think this is a team that's now reached the point where they're trying to squeeze the juice out of this window that they had built with a loaded roster with that quarterback on the rookie contract, and now they're kind of, facing the back end of that window and trying to squeeze the life out of it. And they certainly could still squeeze that into another Super Bowl appearance, but I do think other teams have kind of passed them up this season. One of those being the Chicago Bears, who, yes, did have some losses on the defensive side of the ball. They did also lose their defensive coordinator, but the main pieces are still intact, and they brought in HaHa Clinton-Dix and Buster Skrine to give you a good chunk back of what you lost in Bryce Callahan and Adrian Amos. Obviously, they're not as good as those players, but the defense should still be at worst top 3 as long as they can stay healthy. Offensively, the Trubisky factor is a major question for me, just like the Goff factor for the LA Rams. Just wildly inconsistent. Now, Trubisky's ups are ups. He looks really good at times, and then other times he's just forcing the ball into double coverage and making dumb reads or sailing balls over the middle or down the sideline. So what version of Trubisky do you get this year? That's really where the upside of this team is going to be centered around. And then the Packers here at number 5. There is a large chunk of NFL fans out there that actually believe this team's going to be worse than they were last year. This team was a 6-9-1 team last year. That was on the heels of a quarterback with a broken leg and a torn MCL, a team with virtually all rookie wide receivers in a year where they were depleted by injuries, and they then fired their head coach. So in the offseason, they have 2 first-round picks. They spent about $100 million on the edge rush. They signed a star safety. They hire a new coach. They get their quarterback healthy. To say that they're going to be worse than they were last year when it was a worst-case scenario season for this team last year, I think you're doing this team a disservice, and you're really discrediting what Aaron Rodgers has accomplished. The simple fact is, when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, he makes the playoffs every single time. So the Packers will be back. I also tweeted this out, that the NFL doesn't change the way that they schedule the NFL opener if they expect a 2-score blowout against a great Chicago team. So, the Packers-Bears game in 3 days is going to be epic, and I can't wait. So I'll be flying out to Chicago on Wednesday to go to this game, and I absolutely cannot wait. I think it's going to be a battle, and 2 teams that are going to be relevant in January. The Saints, they're going to drop down a spot here, just getting jumped by the Chiefs, who we'll talk about in just a second. But the Saints will be in the mix for the Super Bowl, no doubt about that. They got everything they need. The only question for me is the hangover effect. They've come so close 2 years in a row. We've seen that devastate teams in the past, like Green Bay and Seattle. So, New Orleans and Sean Payton's going to have to overcome that. That I think is more of a narrative than anything, but it does also feel like a real thing that could linger on an organization. Number 3, I've got the New England Patriots. Now, this is factoring in the fact that this team always starts slow. I think, if we were being realistic, this team probably should be a top 10 team, but I think they will start slow just like they always do. But they also know that their division's a joke, and they're going to be able to turn it on in December and really, get back to where they need to be. So I'm not going to be moving them. If they start 2-2 and lose to the Jets at home like I'm actually predicting, they will not be moving. That is the beauty of my power rankings, is I don't react too much to the first 3 weeks of the season. When you get a team that has an easy schedule that starts 3-0, or you have a team like New England or Philadelphia who we know is going to be able to figure some things out, you're going to see the ESPNs and NFL networks. If one of these teams starts 0-2, they're going to start creeping down to the 10th team. And every single year this happens. And then at 2, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, who I'm even rising on lately. I just, I wanted to be careful over the summer because it feels like every time we get that breakout year, like that epic storyline, narrative-driven team, they drop off the next year. And just the more I think about it, I don't see how that's going to happen with Kansas City. Usually those teams that have those big breakouts don't have a quarterback the caliber of Patrick Mahomes. And I've been critical of Patrick Mahomes, but he's still a top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now and an absolute monster. I still question some of the decisions he makes, but when 9 out of 10 throws and dropbacks are just remarkable, you can excuse some of those things. So the offense, to me, I think could be even better this year. And then the defense, I love the switch from a 3-4 aggressive, almost man-oriented defense that was all over the place and complicated to just a simple 4-3 scheme. The pieces are easy to put in place. You call a more simple game and just let the guys play fast and keep everything in front of them, because this team doesn't need to win the game on defense. They just don't. They just need to keep the team under 30 points and let Patrick Mahomes do the rest of the work, and Tyreek Hill and Andy Reid. So the Chiefs, I think, I just picked them to win the Super Bowl in my predictions video. So I think the Chiefs are poised for a monster season. Quite possibly will be the greatest offense we've ever seen. So just get your popcorn ready. And then the Eagles at number 1. Just to me, this is the deepest, most talented roster in the NFL. I love Carson Wentz coming back here healthy with a bit of a revenge narrative. Now, for the people that are like, he can't stay healthy, you're really going to question Howie Roseman right now? He is at the top of the list for NFL GMs. If you count Bill Belichick, he's ahead of him. But after that, Howie Roseman is the smartest NFL team builder in the world right now. And he just gave Carson Wentz a 4-year extension. He has no worries about his injuries, just as I do not either. So the Eagles are going to be rocking and rolling. I do actually predict a slower start because they have a gruesome schedule to start. So I do think they start with 2-2 or something like that, and I don't expect them to move a whole lot. So for those sticking around this power rankings, if they start 1-3 and they're still in my top 5, I don't want to hear it. They're going to turn it around. I'm telling you right now. So those are the power rankings. Please do hit that like button. Again, turn on notifications and subscribe. I will have my week 1 picks tomorrow as well. So close to the season, baby. Let's go. Cheers as always. We'll see you for the next one.